The Galactic Council's meeting chamber buzzed with the usual mix of tentacles, appendages, and whatever passed for limbs among the 17 recognized sentient species. Counselor Vexner, a gelatinous blob with 7 eye stalks, oozed impatiently as the session dragged into its 14th hour. Point of order, Vexner gurgled through his speech apparatus. Can we please move on to item 47B? My lower hemisphere is starting to solidify. High Chancellor's Loop, a tall insectoid with a bureaucrat's perfect posture, clicked her mandibles in annoyance. Counselor, we must follow procedure. We're currently discussing the human application for full membership. Ah yes, the humans, sighed Ambassador Crete, a reptilian with an impressive collection of ceremonial medals pinned to scales that didn't appreciate the punctures. Peculiar species. Only been spacefaring for what, 30 years? And already demanding a seat at the table. Item 42F, announced Zloop, concerns human reproductive exemptions. A holographic image appeared, showing a human infant. The chamber filled with various sounds of disgust. They produce live young, noted Counselor Plink, who had evolved from fungal spores and found mammalian reproduction frankly obscene. And they keep them external to the body. Inefficient. Zloop nodded her chitinous head. According to our regulations, any species joining the Council must have their reproductive methods approved. Section 9, Paragraph 7 clearly states all infant specimens must be processed through the Galactic Compatibility Scan. But they're claiming exemption, said Vexner, 2 of his eye stalks drooping in boredom. Indeed, replied Zloop. They refuse to submit specimens for testing, citing ethical concerns. I move we reject their application on grounds of non-compliance. The motion passed unanimously, with 17 appendages raised in agreement. No one bothered to read the fine print that came with the rejection, automatic processing of previously submitted specimens. 3 days later, baby Aria Jenkins, who had been brought to the Galactic Embassy on Earth for a routine cultural exchange, was automatically classified as unauthorized biological material and painlessly disintegrated according to Protocol 5962-B. The diplomatic communique reached Earth's United Nations Space Command with the sterile language typical of the Council: specimen processing complete. Incompatibility confirmed. Application denied. It took exactly 12 minutes for humanity to understand what had happened, and 13 minutes for Earth to declare total war on the entire Galactic Council. General Huang of the UNSC slammed his fist on the table. They killed a baby because of a form. A form? President Lisa Okonkwo's voice was deadly calm. Get me every ship, every weapon, every soldier. The Council just made the worst mistake in their collective history. In orbit above Mars, Captain Jane Hayes received the alert on her salvage vessel, the Rusty Bucket. A former military pilot who'd left service to pursue a quieter life collecting space junk, she stared at the message in disbelief. Well, that's just perfect, she muttered, tossing her coffee mug against the bulkhead. Hey, Dex. We're at war with aliens now. Dex, her engineer, popped his head through the access hatch, face covered in grease. Is that why my dating app just got replaced with a military draft notice? Apparently the Council executed a baby, Jane said, rereading the alert. Some bureaucratic mix-up. They did what now? Dex climbed fully into the bridge, wiping his hands on his already filthy jumpsuit. Who kills a baby over paperwork? The same people who made us fill out 16 forms to dump our garbage, Jane replied, calling up the ship's systems. The Rusty Bucket was no warship, but it had been military surplus once. Some of its more interesting features had been merely deactivated rather than removed. The ship's AI, which Jane had named Snarky, chimed in. Captain, incoming transmission from Earth Command. Priority Alpha. Put it through, Jane said, straightening her rumpled jacket. General Huang's face appeared on screen. Captain Hayes. I see you've received the alert. Yes, sir. Though I'm not sure what a salvage vessel is supposed to do against the Council's fleet. Huang's expression was grim. We're activating everyone with combat experience. Your particular set of skills and your ship's location make you uniquely valuable for a special operation. Jane raised an eyebrow. My particular set of skills involved flying transport shuttles and occasionally shooting at pirates. And before that, you were one of our best infiltration specialists, Huang replied. The Council doesn't know that. Your ship is registered as a civilian salvage vessel, and you're currently just outside Council space. You want me to sneak in, Jane said, realization dawning. We need eyes inside their command structure, Huang confirmed. You'll rendezvous with the rest of your team at these coordinates. They're already en route. Team. What team? We're gathering specialists. You'll be in command. Before Jane could protest further, the details flashed across her screen. A pilot, an engineer, a former spy, and a xenobiologist. All with grudges against the Council, all with the specific skills needed to infiltrate their bureaucracy. This is insane, Jane muttered after the general signed off. We're going to war over a baby. Dex leaned against the doorframe. Seems like a pretty good reason to me. Better than most wars. I don't disagree, Jane said, plotting a course to the rendezvous point. But we're talking about 17 advanced species with technology that makes ours look like stone tools. Yeah, but they've never fought humans before, Dex grinned. We're special. 48 hours later, Jane stood in the Rusty Bucket's cargo hold, examining her new crew. They were a sorry-looking bunch, but their credentials were impressive. All right, she said, crossing her arms. I'm Captain Hayes. Welcome to Operation Baby's First Revenge. A tall, lanky man with a cybernetic eye groaned. Please tell me that's not the actual operation name. It's not, Jane admitted. But it should be. You must be Finn, our pilot. Former Council Embassy transport pilot, he corrected. Until they decided humans were too unpredictable to be trusted with their precious diplomats. Next to him stood a short woman with a shock of purple hair. Dr. Eliza Wood, Xenobiology, she introduced herself. They rejected my research grant 14 times. Said studying human-alien biological compatibility was unnecessary and primitive. Ravi Patel, said the third member, a nondescript man who somehow seemed to blend into the background even while speaking. Intelligence gathering. I've been embedded in Council territory for years. And you already know me, Dex called from the upper level. Ship's engineer and now, apparently, wartime mechanic. Jane nodded. Good. Here's the situation, humanity's officially at war with the Council. While Earth prepares our primary assault, we have a different mission. We're going to infiltrate Council HQ and gather intelligence on their defense systems. That's suicide, Finn said flatly. Maybe, Jane agreed. But consider the alternative, Earth goes in blind against 17 advanced species, and we all die anyway. When you put it that way. Eliza murmured. Ravi was already accessing data on his tablet. The Council's central hub is on Proxima Station. Security is tight, but with a salvage vessel like this, we might get clearance for the outer maintenance docks. And then? Jane asked. Ravi smiled thinly. Then we use the Council's greatest weakness against them. Their superiority complex, guessed Eliza. Their bureaucracy, Ravi corrected. No one questions anyone carrying the right form. As the Rusty Bucket accelerated toward Council space, Earth's military was already mobilizing. Despite their technological disadvantage, humans had one advantage: they were really, really angry. And as Captain Hayes was about to demonstrate, bureaucrats never expect their paperwork to bite back. The Rusty Bucket limped toward Proxima Station, venting plasma from its starboard engine. Jane had deliberately roughed up the ship's exterior, making it look even more salvage-worthy than usual. Proxima Control, this is Earth salvage vessel Rusty Bucket, Jane said. Requesting emergency docking for repairs. A synthesized voice responded. Earth vessel, your species has been declared hostile. Prepare to be disintegrated. Oh please, Jane rolled her eyes. Check your updates. Form 62J cleared this morning. We're classified as essential waste management contractors. After a tense pause, they received clearance to dock. The team disembarked with their plan in place. Jane and Ravi would access the central computer while Eliza posed as a biological consultant. Finn and Dex would stay with the ship for a quick exit. A security drone granted them access after scanning Ravi's forged credentials. The interior of Proxima Station was filled with various alien species hurrying past, none concerned about the war with humans. To them, it's just an administrative matter, Ravi explained. Forms to be filed. They reached Level 92's waste processing control room where Ravi accessed the main console. I'm in, he said after 90 seconds. They don't consider us a threat, but they're planning something called species discipline that can target human DNA galaxy-wide. The vote is tomorrow. We're going straight to the council chamber, Jane decided. They infiltrated the chamber where Jane approached the administrative speaker's podium. Esteemed council members, she began, I represent Administrative Review Section 7, Form Compliance Division. There has been a critical procedural error regarding the human specimen processing. While Jane distracted the council with bureaucratic jargon about improper form filing, Ravi uploaded a virus to disable their weapon and broadcast its existence to all member worlds. Eliza collected biological samples. Chancellor's look appeared flustered. This procedural error is most concerning. We shall need to investigate. In the meantime, Jane said, I have the forms ready to halt all actions against Earth pending review. Within hours, every species in the galaxy learned about the Council's secretive weapon. Member species demanded accountability, and 3 days later, the Council sent an unprecedented apology, offering humans a full seat and substantial reparations. President Okonkwo's response, we accept your surrender. 6 months later, Jane stood in the human embassy as ambassador as the Council ratified the new charter, including the Aria Protocol, named after the baby whose death had changed the galaxy, which prohibited executions without multiple levels of review. I still don't understand how your species moved from anger to such effective administrative reform, Slope confessed. Jane smiled. The pen is mightier than the sword, but nothing beats knowing exactly which form to file. And rule number 1, no more dead babies over paperwork. Jane stood in the gleaming observation deck of the newly built human embassy, gazing at the stars beyond Proxima Station. 5 years had passed since Earth's administrative revenge against the Galactic Council. The Aria Protocol had changed everything. Ambassador Hayes. A young diplomatic aide approached, holding a data tablet. The Vexnarians have submitted their application for council membership. Jane smiled. Vexner, the former council member, had led his species to declare independence from the council last year. Now they wanted back in, under human terms. Process it under the standard procedure, Jane said. Make sure they complete Form 392H thoroughly. The aide nodded. And the Thraxians are requesting another extension on their reparations payment. Denied, Jane replied. They voted for the baby's execution. They pay on time. One more thing, the aide said hesitantly. Earth has sent a special visitor. Jane turned as the door slid open. A small human girl, about 5 years old, walked in shyly, accompanied by President Okonkwo herself. Ambassador Hayes, the president said formally, may I present Aria Jenkins. Jane's breath caught. The child, the clone of the baby whose death had sparked a war, had been Earth's most closely guarded secret. The fallen infant's parents had agreed to the cloning on one condition, that their daughter would one day know the truth of her importance. Hello, Aria said with surprising poise. They told me you made the aliens say sorry for what they did to me. The first me. Jane knelt to the child's eye level. They did more than say sorry. They changed their entire civilization because of you. The girl considered this with the seriousness only children can muster. Was it a proper sorry, or just a saying the word sorry? Jane smiled. The proper kind. With forms filed in triplicate. As Aria giggled, not fully understanding but appreciating the joke, Jane saw Chancellor Zloop watching nervously from the doorway. The insectoid had never seen the child before. Is that? Zloop began. Yes, Jane answered simply. The Council's greatest mistake, and its greatest teacher. Zloop's mandibles quivered in what Jane had learned was an expression of deep emotion. The Aria Protocol was named appropriately, then. Indeed, President Okonkwo said. And today, she will address the full council as a reminder of why we changed the galaxy. Later, as the smallest human in history stood before 17 alien species and spoke about forgiveness and accountability, Jane thought about bureaucracy and its power. Forms could kill, but they could also protect. Rules could oppress, but they could also ensure justice. Aria finished her speech with words no council member would ever forget. My first life ended because you didn't see me as a person. My second life exists to make sure you never make that mistake again. As thunderous alien applause filled the chamber, Jane knew that the war was truly, finally over. Earth hadn't just won, they had transformed the battlefield entirely. And somewhere in the vast archives of Proxima Station, a simple form labeled, Baby Aria, not for processing, was enshrined in unbreakable crystal, a permanent reminder that behind every procedure was a life worth protecting. 20 years had passed since Aria's historic address to the Galactic Council. The once meek clone child had grown into a formidable diplomat in her own right, following in Ambassador Hayes' footsteps. Jane, now approaching retirement, watched from her private office as Aria conducted negotiations with a newly discovered species, beings of pure energy who communicated through complex light patterns. They're agreeing to our terms, Dex said, now silver-haired but still serving as Earth's technical liaison. Never thought I'd see the day when humans would be the old guard of galactic politics. We earned it the hard way, Jane replied, absently rubbing the scar on her hand, a souvenir from a later, less successful infiltration mission. The door slid open, and Ravi entered. Though he'd refused all official titles, his intelligence network had become legendary across 17 systems. It's time, he said quietly. The final vote. Jane nodded and followed him to the council chamber. Today marked the last act of her diplomatic career, the dissolution of the original Galactic Council and its reformation as the Galactic Alliance. No species would hold permanent authority, leadership would rotate, with checks and balances that would have been unimaginable 25 years ago. As they entered, the chamber fell silent. Even Vexner's descendants, gelatinous blobs who'd evolved more eye stalks than their ancestor, ceased their usual bubbling. Chancellor Zloop, now in her final days of authority, raised her aged mandibles. Ambassador Hayes, would you do us the honor of initiating the final protocol? Jane approached the central podium where a simple crystalline button awaited. One press would transfer all council authority to the new alliance structure, permanently. Before I do, Jane said, her voice carrying across the chamber, I want to remind everyone why we're here. We're not just changing administrative structures. We're ensuring that no life, no matter how small or different, will ever be extinguished because of a form again. She pressed the button. Throughout the station, lights flickered as ancient systems transferred to new ones. When the light stabilized, Aria stepped forward, now bearing the title of First Mediator of the Galactic Alliance. Thank you, Ambassador Hayes, she said formally, though her eyes shone with personal affection. Your service is complete. As Jane stepped back, a small plaque materialized on the podium, a permanent installation that would remain through all future administrations. It contained only 5 words. Remember the baby. Remember Aria. Later, as Jane packed her office for the return journey to Earth, Aria visited one last time. Will you miss it? The younger woman asked. The politics, the diplomacy, the forms. Jane laughed. Maybe the forms. There's something satisfying about a properly filed document 62J. They're naming a wing of the new Alliance headquarters after you, Aria said. The Jane Hayes Center for Interspecies Justice. They should have called it the Bureaucratic Revenge Division, Jane quipped, but her eyes were serious. Just make sure they remember why we fought. Not for power or territory. But for a single life, Aria finished. The principle that every being matters. As Jane's ship departed Proxima Station the next day, 17 species sent honor guards, a tradition that had never existed before humans joined the galactic community. Back on Earth, a small monument stood in what had once been the Jenkins family's garden. It bore no grand inscriptions, no lengthy explanations, just a single line that had become Earth's unofficial motto among the stars. File the right forms. Save a life. And somewhere in the vastness of space, the echo of a bureaucratic era that had started a war continued to shape a peace that would last for generations to come.